Ulric, welcome to the Bitcoin Source. Can we start things off by you introducing yourself to the audience?
Yeah, hey, my name is Ulric Pattillo. I go by Sir Ulric on Twitter. An active contributor to Bitcoin Magazine. I'm also a co-author of the Declaration of Monetary Independence, which you may have seen at Bitcoin Miami 2022.
Thank you, Ulric, for that introduction. I'm super excited to have you on the show today because you're one of my idols or mentors in the writer space for writing about Bitcoin. So I definitely had to have you on. And one of the first questions I usually ask people on the show is, where did you source your Bitcoin knowledge, whether it's from books, courses, or even people in the ecosystem that might have inspired you? So could you kind of give a breakdown of any of those things that might have helped you to become a better Bitcoiner?
Yeah, absolutely. To be succinct, during the COVID lockdowns, I was already a Bitcoiner and trying to learn as much as I could. Then I started seeing, I think Breedlove's first interview series with Michael Saylor really touched me, really hit me hard. I think episode 8, um, you know, Breedlove asked him why, why do you do this? And he was frank, he said he didn't need the money, he didn't need the gains from Bitcoin, but he felt that it was not only the right thing for society, but the right thing to share his perspective, his conviction. And I mean, I was out in the field doing quick feet drills with the ladder and the weight vest because we couldn't go into the gym. And I was like, and I stopped and I had to almost shed a tear. I'm like, I got to share my thoughts too, because I have them, people need them. And that was, early 2021. And now we're at the end of 2022. I'm still going.
Yeah, most definitely. And you've done so much in the space. Like I was saying off camera, when I first tried to start writing for Bitcoin Magazine, I was kind of searching for people that I could relate to. And off the bat, I just saw some of your writing and I was like really inspired, and it kind of encouraged me to kind of take my writing to the next level. So I just wanted to thank you on air for kind of, it's kind of weird how we are as Bitcoiners. We don't know who we're inspiring when we write articles about our experience with this protocol. So you definitely inspired me. So thank you for that, Ori.
I would say that our interactions, although we've never met in person, having conversations in the DMs in the Bitcoin magazine Telegram. You were the reason why I write. If you look at my little profile on BitcoinMagazine.com, it says, I write as an outreach to people that think like me, that think similar to me. Everyone's not identical, but my writing is like, hey, I'm out here and I need other people that, share my conviction. And you saying, hey, yeah, I'm on your team. That really helps me out. Every time I write an article, maybe one or two people, get the courage to send me a DM. And it's like, hey, this really touched me. It really helped me out. And I'm sharing it with my family, my friends. And that's the reason I do it. Not to get, famous or to get paid. I have a career. I'm fine with my job. But I write because I want to share my conviction and to show people that it's okay to have that conviction and to reach out to others and tell them why what you think is okay. So many people are so scared and they want to hide whatever their worldview is and under a cup. And we just don't. We should celebrate our free speech. We should celebrate what we think, especially if it's good for the world.
Well said, well said. I couldn't agree more. And I kind of want to dig into, because you've written so many things for Bitcoin Mag. I didn't know where to start, but there was an article, or better yet, another contributor in the space, Mike Hobart, and you and him kind of talk a lot about monetary independence. So I wanted to ask you, what does monetary independence mean to you, and how has Bitcoin changed that as a call to action?
Yeah, I mean, Mike and I, we worked together with Mark Mariah on the Declaration of Monetary Independence, and it's so important to me. And mind you, Mike and I probably don't share a lot of tertiary views together. That's not to say that we don't share DMs on occasion. We don't share jokes. He's one of my best Bitcoin friends in my opinion. But monetary independence to me is the idea that when you earn a unit of value, that no one can tell you where to spend it, where to store it, and who to give it to. And these are the kind of things that you would think, back in maybe your parents' day or your grandparents' day, you weren't even thinking about that. Like, of course, that dollar is my dollar. That peso is my peso. But as technology grows, we get things that make our lives easier, and we're able to do more things at one time. I can look at my fantasy football team and talk with you at the same time, even though I'm not. But I could if I wanted to. Whereas in the past, you may have to go look at a spreadsheet to see what your favorite running back is doing. But technology enables us in the same for freeing our time, if you will. But in the same way, technology is also infringing or enables others with power to infringe on us. So what you have is central banking, you have governments, and they have the ability to coerce, to manipulate, and to do things in a veiled way or in a creeping way that you probably wouldn't even notice. And those types of things, I don't need to break down CBDCs to you guys, or even just the current form of banking that we have now. If you're watching this podcast, you know what I'm talking about. Those types of things are enabled by technology. In the same way that we have increased freedom, we also have the risk of increased coercion. That's very important to speak against, and I don't think I'm ever going to stop.
Yeah, most definitely. And that, that surveillance money that, people are so concerned about is a reality and is probably going to come to fruition. But now people have an actual option out, which is Bitcoin. And I think the world hasn't really gravitated towards how powerful this protocol is and how this money is going to really change the way that we interact with each other on not only a peer-to-peer level, but a social level as well. And I'm just really grateful to see writers such as yourself talking about these things and making it pertinent that we should have monetary independence, and that's something that we should fight for.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about that is that, monetary independence, when we think about, what did people do to fight for independence? And what did that mean to the people that were their overlords? When we think about the French Revolution or the American Revolution, there was a war, there was conflict, and these types of things make big changes. After the American Revolution, what you saw was a reduction in the strength in the reach of the British Empire. What you saw in the French Revolution was a reduction in the strength of the elite class, to be very rudimentary. And I think that I see a lot of Bitcoin theories, a lot of Bitcoin summaries about the future of Bitcoin, and a lot of it is a collaborative or a co-beneficial framing of the current network, the current structure we have, the fiat structure, and of the hard digital unconfiscatable money that is Bitcoin. And I find that to be a little bit, not, I wouldn't say disingenuous, but maybe a little bit of a short-sighted. In my opinion, I don't see how Bitcoin could strengthen the dollar. When you consider the dollar is as strong as it can be, it is the one world currency. Whatever the dollar does, the petrodollar, the strength of that to control the oil prices, to control people who buy energy, that's as strong as you really want to be. And so when you think about, Bitcoin can strengthen the Federal Reserve, if they just buy Bitcoin, that would be like a horse company saying, yeah, you know what, we're going to, a company that sells horses, we're going to buy all these cars, and we're going to promote these cars because that's really cool. Meanwhile, you don't make cars, you breed horses. You breed horses for transportation. You are demonetizing yourself. You are basically making a future where you don't exist. And so, in my opinion, when we think about Bitcoin growing in adoption, growing in in usage, growing in ownership, savings, whatever you will, you can't help but think, well, what does that do to the strength of the local fiat currency? And what it does is it's a balancing scale, and you can't have Bitcoin and the dollar getting stronger. What you have is, as the dollar goes down in reach and coercive power, you have Bitcoin going up, or it's the opposite. And so, for that matter, when you think about, well, what runs on the dollar, you have governments, you have hedge funds, you have these entities that benefit from the ability to print money. The Cantillon effect. What was the Genesis block there for? To protest the banks that were bailed out back in 2008. These kind of things couldn't happen in a Bitcoin future. So what you have is the people who benefit from that dollar system, that fiat system, essentially get weaker. And I understand we talk about that to a degree, but they get weaker to the point of, in my opinion, as Bitcoin gets stronger, to the point of basically, I'm losing my words, but basically they don't have the power that they once did. And it's and the individual sovereignism raises to a degree where it's like, now people actually have the power of what they are earning on a regular basis versus having to fight against inflation. These are the kinds of things that I want to see more talk about. I want to see more talk about what happens if the dollar does indeed reduce its power. What does that do to the U.S. government? I want people to talk about that. I don't hear that enough.
Yes, and Ulrich, that makes me think about what you were just saying per this conversation. There's so many other cryptos out there. There's so many other, quasi solutions for what we're dealing with on a financial front and on just a peer-to-peer transaction front. And there is a quote that you said in one of your articles, I believe it's the Contributor's Conviction, where you say Bitcoin is the quintessential solution for many. What did you mean by that?
The way I see that, I think I remember writing that. The way I see that is that the many, I'm not necessarily what would you call it? I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. I don't think I'm not a collectivist. I'm very much an individual sovereignist, but the many are made up of individuals. And these individuals, they go out and they do their labor and they expect compensation. Bitcoin, in a hard money standard, that is really all you need for people to thrive. In the world we live in now, your daily labor isn't enough. Not even if you're a lawyer, engineer. You gotta pull tricks. You gotta play games. Your money has to do something magical for you. And if you happen to be living in the wrong time, where liquidity is going down, where it's a bear market, where there's a recession, then your money can't play the games that you would need in order to thrive the way you would foresee based on the money that you make. So when we talk about the quintessential solution for the many, most people aren't traders. Most people aren't investors. Most people, they go to work, they come home, they take care of their family. Your money should be sufficient enough. Now, if you want to trade, if you want to play these games on a stock market with legitimate companies, and not fake companies built on debt and loans, then that's okay. If you want to trade the market because you see a trend and that kind of stuff elicits some sort of mental, psychological game with other traders, and you want to try to beat them, then that's fine. But that should be extra. That should be bonus. That should be gravy. Bitcoin, if we are in a world where money is money, a 1 unit is 1 unit, then if you plot your life out based on that unit that you expect to make, you're good. I always use this framing. a city, forget a city employee, a garbage man making $30,000-$40,000 a year. He shouldn't have to figure out, oh gosh, M2 money supply is going up 20%, on average every year. And now I have to figure out what else I have to do besides being a garbage man. And maybe if I go trade this NFT, and maybe if I'm really, really lucky, it can 100x and I can sell it at the top of the market. These kind of things, a human shouldn't have to think about in order to just survive. We're not talking about getting into another class. We're talking about you just need to be able to tread water. And in our world right now, we can't even tread water. You have to be a gamer. You have to game the system, because the system is gaming us. It's not right.
Most definitely, you got to have like 7 different hustles now just to keep up with, the hurdle rate, the inflation rate, the cost of living, especially if you live in some of these super cities like San Francisco or New York City, where yeah, or Los Angeles, there you go. Like, it's just crazy expensive. So, people just have to be realistic about their finances. And I think that Bitcoin kind of creates that escape hatch for people, even though they can't see it in the short term. Over the long term, they'll realize, like, wow, this was a great investment outside of stocks or real estate or some of the other things that people kind of get sucked into and their liquidity gets sucked into. But Ulric, I wanted to really talk about, something that's really important to me, which is writing, and I know that's a passion of yours as well. And I just wanted to ask you, like, you're on your, I believe, 11th article now. How does it feel to have written so many articles for Bitcoin Magazine?
They were so generous with their time. They were so generous with they were so gracious with their suggestions, their advice. I remember my first article, I sent an email saying, hey, I have an idea, I want to write about it. CK, responded within an hour. I was showing my mom and my coworkers, like, look, Bitcoin Magazine responded to me. And it's like, yeah, we'll take it. And it's not to say that, again, they are very gracious in giving regular people, that aren't in the big, macro economy, the Greg Fosses, the Lawrence Lepards, they're always going to be there. But Bitcoin Magazine did a great job of providing a platform for plebs. I remember looking at all these different places where I contribute, and there was always like, oh, you have to have this 5 years of journalism. I'm like, come on, man. Like, I have good ideas and I can't share them with people, but Bitcoin Magazine was there. And they, they develop a relationship with people who are committed. And, as CK moved on, Casey Carrillo, joined as the chief editor. He added some other guys that were contributors and became editors. Mark Mariah, Craig, I forget his last name. Even Mark Goodwin was a contributor, became, the editor for the print magazine. So it's like they are pulling from the plebs. Like, what a business model, it's like, and you create loyalty, and I'm forever grateful. I think because of that, collaborating with other people, Mark Mariah and had an idea. Me and Mike joined forces with him to help polish it. And we ended up making that 9-foot printout of the declaration so people could sign in real time at the conference. These are the kind of things that, it's not Jack Mahler's strike. It's not a cold wallet. It's not cold card. But what it is people need fuel. People need weaponry to go out into the world and say, hey, have you ever considered this perspective? Have you ever considered that perspective? And all we're doing, we're just sharpening swords for people. It's like, hey, I got an article I can write. If someone's who's not fluid with language, not fluid with argument, with a argumentative commentary, they say, hey, this guy wrote this and he's just a regular dude. What do you think of that? And so it's like you enable regular people to have firepower for when they go out in the world, because we are still so small. We are still so early. And there are people who are our age, millennials, and they have no idea. I remember last year, 2021 talking to a buddy of mine that I thought was, based. He didn't even know what a Satoshi was. And he was looking, he said, oh yeah, I'm into crypto. It's like, oh, I didn't even know you could buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. I'm like, what are you? I thought you were a smart guy. And it's like, he is, but he didn't do his research. And that's what we are. We're building this material, out of the conviction of our heart. And we are building good things that enable others to share the word. And I think it's going to be our writings, you, me, all these people that are here right now. Our stuff is going to be talked about, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And that was my goal. My goal is I had some ideas and I wanted them to be made permanent. I wanted them to be locked into history, because there's going to be someone out there in the future, now, present, or in the future, that's going to need it. And, when they reach out to me 10 years from now and they say, hey, I read your stuff from 2021 and I just want to thank you. That's what I do it for.
Yeah, most definitely. And, speaking of the future, you have a very futuristic outlook on Bitcoin. And speaking of articles, you have a series called What If that I really love. And my question to you is, why do you believe that the state will, be demonetized by sound money and the educational system will be liberated by the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah, that's so I'm working on my third one right now, which is about how sports are affected. The sports and entertainment industry is affected by hard money. But I released two before, the education first, then government. I think it just comes down to, and education and the government different from sports. That's private industry. But when you think about education, we start off with that. If Bitcoin were to be the world standard, we don't have an ability to create IOUs anymore. The world standard money, where there's 21 million Satoshis, 21 million Bitcoin, 21 quadrillion Satoshis, there is no room for, an IOU. People who are living in a Bitcoin standard, they're going to look at that IOU and they're going to say, I need something on the ledger. I need something on the blockchain, on the time chain right now, or I'm not going to work for you. And that's going to be a consistent theme in a world where, if we really believe that Bitcoin is going to be the basis of all money in the future, that's going to happen. And so what does that mean? Well, we always talk about, education budget and grants, state grants to perpetuate the education system. That's fiat, man. That's fiat. That's fake money. That's expanding the monetary supply. That's not a possibility in our future. So what happens? Well, maybe if the public can't print money, the public services breaks down. If there's something that can't create value, that can't create profit, then those systems run out of money. It's just math. And so what you have there, I tried to give some ideas about, well, this is what would happen if public education is in trouble. It's like, we ran out of money. And I do believe that, through technology and through going back to the way education used to be in old Greek times, where you have more individual relationships, I do think that there is an opportunity for education to persevere and even thrive in a Bitcoin standard. I was homeschooled using technology, using VHSs back in the 90s. I do believe that it has grown since then. I do believe that tutoring will become a stronger industry. I believe that teachers in a private industry wouldn't have to argue and fight for how much should they earn. I think that teachers that are innovative and industrious develop platforms to share the expertise that they have, and maybe make way more than a teacher in this state controlled world that we have right now. Imagine you have to petition, please, please, please pay me more money. Because guess what? They monopolize you. The teachers are monopolized by the government. They can't go out and be industrious with their knowledge. Um, I do believe that we would leverage technology. We would leverage self motivated education. And when we think about it, right now we go through education where this, we learn the same old history every single year to the point where it's almost like propaganda. Why do we need to learn U.S. history the same way every year? Why do we need to learn science the same way every year? But if every student is built for their own tailoring, for the way that that their parents believe that they should live, and as long as they are growing and learning and understanding the world around them, that's really all that matters. So I do believe that in our current fiat world, we can't see that there's too much of a monopoly on the way we grow children. But I do believe when we are forced to saying, hey, the state no longer can support this, what do we do? That's when we really thrive. In terms of the government part, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, I mean, if you look to my article, you look at tax receipts versus expenditures. The government is spending, annually, 3 times more than the taxes they earn. What happens? Where does the rest of that money come from? Well, it comes from monetary expansion. However they do it, whether quantitative easing or banks, inject more money into the system. You can't do that on a hard money standard. So what happens? Well, you have all these services that don't provide value. And when talking about value, that means that they don't create value. Some people may, yeah, of course, I can use the post office. Thanks for taking my mail. But do you have to hemorrhage $1 billion every year to do it? So it's like, what happens when there's no more easy money to create? Well, the post office goes away. Certain government services go away to the point where it's like, yeah, I do believe that the government, United States at least, I can't speak for the Netherlands. Some governments are seem to be doing okay, but the United States, they're so big, they spend so much. I would say that they would shrink by 66% as it is right now. What happens then when we say shrinks by 66%? What systems go away? Military would be hard to throw away. What happens then? So those are the kind of topics I talk about. And I do believe that those are questions that we don't in the Bitcoin space talk about that much because, everyone wants the central bank to buy Bitcoin. And I don't see that. Again, like I said, with the horse, why would a horse dealer want to propagate a car dealership? It's pointless. So I do feel that there is a, police, when we talk about police officers, it's like I gave an example of how, the police are paid by the city. So they protect the city. In a Bitcoin world, you hire your security, your local security. A neighborhood hires, hey, we want you to police our neighborhood. Well, guess who their primary objective is? To support the people that they're being paid by. So it's like now all of a sudden we talk about these dynamics between people and police and people in government services, and all of a sudden when they turn private, when the incentives change, people end up saying, you know what, they're working for me now because I'm paying them, and they understand that social contract, and all the dynamic changes. Police officers, there wouldn't be any reason for police officers to go abusing people left and right because they work for those people. They don't work for the city anymore. These are the kind of questions that I want people to really address. And it's hard because you want that government support. We want that senator to say, we're buying Bitcoin. We're going to make it the legal tender. I think that's crazy. Bitcoin is for the people, and the people won't die off because the government is reducing.
Yep. And that was the whole premise of Bitcoin. It was kind of to, once that chancellor of the bank's message came out from Satoshi, that's when it was like the clock started ticking. And, you know, it's just very interesting when you see like people like Kathy Wood, for example, kind of liberating and talking about Bitcoin, saying like, look at all the use cases that this coin has for the world and for the future. She even has a timeline to say like what the value of what the coin will be by 2030, and she's considered a traditional banker, someone that's not really a part of this Bitcoin ecosystem, and she can see the the benefit of something like Bitcoin. So why can't the politician or the police officer, like you're saying? And you know Mike Hobart, a lot of people in Bitcoin Magazine talk about citadels, where you're going to have these systems in place where people of like mind, people that all contribute to Bitcoin or understand the Bitcoin standard, will start to group themselves into little groups or cities or towns where they're kind of setting a standard to say like, hey, we want to have, you know, clean produce, healthy meats, healthy foods, have like a camaraderie there, and we're all going to use and transact in Bitcoin. I think that your articles kind of are building into having that conversation as well, with citadels where your schooling is controlled, the way that people are policed or controlled, like you said. And I just think that it's going to be really helpful in the future to have places like that, or safe places like that, for Bitcoiners, because, as we see, the world is getting crazier and crazier every day, and the money is just falling apart. I think even Trump, when he was in office, like he had to bail out the post office, I believe, like you mentioned. And it's like people don't remember that. Like that was a few years ago, but these are things that are happening right now in real time. And it's like, why is the post office running out of money? Like that's a question that people should be having to themselves, right? So it's like, just buy your Bitcoin, keep stacking your Satoshis, and I think that over time the world will eventually turn a leaf, turn a page, and see like, okay, this is the standard, and this is kind of where we have to head for the future.
It, I absolutely agree with that, and we are groomed to be statists, by definition. And again, it doesn't matter. We always talk about left and right. It's like, oh, I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. But the problem is that, and are we focused on the individual, or are we focused on, and the individual drives the world, the individual drives humanity forward, or does the state, do we select a few people and say this is where we go, and we bet everything on picking the right politician? And I'm like, you don't have to do that. And maybe you had to do that back in the day, 1900, that's why central banks were made. You can say that, it ruined everything. It definitely caused, money to move, encourage money to move faster, and fiat enabled money to go, to move, through space, instantly. You deposit $1 in Los Angeles, you can withdraw in New York. It's the same unit. We have outgrown that as humanity, as human beings, that through history, through technological advances, we have outgrown that. But the people who benefited from that time want to hold on. And we need to realize that as individuals, what is the best option for us? And it's not propagating the current system of fiat directed and owned by government institutions. We can opt out. And when I say opt out, that means like, yes, like we need to demonetize. We need to look for ways to say, no, we're not going to fund that. No, we're not going to fund this. We are going to hold our money, take self-custody, and interact on a peer-to-peer way, without the overlords of society gatekeeping for us.
Ulrich, this Bitcoin conversation has been super insightful, and I think that a lot of people will really gravitate to this and learn a lot of things about Bitcoin and just, being a sovereign individual, which is what I know you hold near and dear. So to end things off, could you give the world your social media handles and any future endeavors that you might want people to know about?
Yeah. So my social is like my gamer tag. If you ever see at Kobe Duran, KOBIDURAN, that's my Twitter, but you'll probably find that name in video games littered throughout the last 10, 15 years. Again, I don't, I could break down all my articles that I've written over the last year and a half, but you guys can go see those articles at bitcoinmagazine.com. until I make my own website. I'm working on that at the beginning of the year. I hope to have that locked down by the springtime. I would hope that I'd see everyone at Bitcoin Miami in 2023, where we can also have a hopefully another version of the Declaration of Monetary Independence. We can everyone can sign it, take pictures. Hopefully, I'm there with you, so I could take some pictures with you guys. And I'm going to be also helping Anders from Toxic Happy Hour help him put together his pleb party, which will be likely the day before the conference starts. And I really want you guys to go to that, support that. Anders is a great dude. He's one of those people that when I started writing, I'm like, I'm writing to go get people. And, you know, luckily he's local to LA. You know, we started collaborating, hanging out a little bit, and, you know, getting in Bitcoin is the reason. One of the main reasons to get into Bitcoin is to develop friendships that will last a lifetime because you guys have the same worldview. And he's one of those people. Support his party when it happens the day before the conference starts. Take care. Bye, Dadu.